I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, April the 25th, brought to you in part by Joplin Regional Stockyards. Big Cow and Bull special coming up May the 4th. It's a 4:30 in the afternoon start on that, after the way up cows and bulls there, but should be some purchases there for you guys. And then the very next day, on a Thursday, they've got the prime time video special, which they'll have several big lots of commercial feeder cattle there for that sale. But if you're interested in looking at any of the options that Joplin Regional Stockyards has for marketing your cattle, go to joplinstockyards.com. When the going gets tough, the tough got to get going, and I tell you what, it is tough. We had a terrible cattle on feed report that come out on Friday. I told you guys last week that the way that the analysts, and I always say it really doesn't matter what the numbers are, it's just what they are in comparison to what the average of the analysts' guess were, as far as whether it's bullish or bearish. But it was very bearish, and I told you guys last week, after I saw the estimates that the analysts had put out, that they had them cranked way down. And likely those people have been out paying attention and knowing that we're short of cattle and things like that, and they had them cranked way down. Well, we've still got a lot of cattle in the feedlot to get through, a lot of them, and we know that, and a lot of them are going to be ready for market here in the next 3 weeks or so. We got to get through those cattle. We've been preparing for those cattle. We've been nervous about it. There's no empty pens available right now. The feedlots are slammed full, and I guess they didn't pay any attention to that, but your on-feed estimates for April the 1st come out to be 101.7. The average of the analyst guess was 100.3. Now that's a bearish comparison there. If you look at your March placements, they come out to be 99.6 compared to the average of the analyst guess, which was 91.7. Very bearish. Now, a lot of people are looking at those numbers and saying, this don't really add up. Well, we're going to talk about that here in a minute. Your marketings of fed cattle for March come out just about where they expected them at 98.0, which the average of the analyst guess was 98.1. But still very bearish for feeder cattle. I expect your feeder cattle markets to be down hard, even harder if grains are up again. But my gosh, you look at this and you think, I realize there's a lot of cattle out there, but since July, our reported placements on your cattle on feed report are up 2.2%. Where did all those cattle come from? Our last inventory report showed that we've got a much smaller calf crop, down about 2%. Well, where's all the cattle out? And a lot of people, a lot of analysts that are pro fundamentals and pro the cattle market are saying these don't add up at all. Well, I'm not saying that much. I just think all the cattle are in the feedlot. There's not that many cattle left outside the feedlot. A lot of you guys had to pull calves off cows early because they wanted to hold the cows. They couldn't afford to hold the cows and the calves. A lot of those calves went on feed early or into one of those lots that are counted early. And also I noticed that for the big turnout for your major grazing areas, guys were getting really short of available stocker cattle to turn out. They were calling all over the country trying to look for stocker type cattle to turn out April the 15th, and they're still looking hard for them, and they're giving handsome prices for them if they've got some places to turn out. They still haven't turned out all the cattle in some of the other major grazing areas like the foothills of the Rockies and way up in western Nebraska and places like that. They still got a lot of turning out to do, but the Osage and the Flint Hills are pretty well stocked, and there's just not very many cattle outside the feedlots, and so it looks horrible. But you've got to pay attention to what's going on here and to know that we've killed a lot of cows. I mean, a lot of them. And we've put a lot of heifers in the feedlots. The last few years we've been averaging almost 40% heifers in the feedlot. Well, if it's almost 40%, we're not keeping no heifers back to make cows out of. Normally it runs in the low 30s, but it's been running, up 37% or more. So we're not making any more of these calves, and our calf crop's going to be much smaller again. Our cow herd is much smaller, and but we've got to get through all these cattle that we put on feed early. They were gaining 3 pounds something a day instead of gaining 2 pounds on winter forage somewhere, so they're getting done early. We're not going to have the mountain of cattle to get through in August. We're going to have them in June. So that's why we've been needing to make market position, and we have been making market position because right now our available numbers of market ready cattle are tight. But let's look into some more of this stuff on the cattle on feed report that come out on Friday, talking about placements by state for this March. You look at Iowa, your placements in Iowa were down 11%, so they weren't in Iowa. Now Nebraska was up 7%, well, a few more in Nebraska there, I guess. Kansas was pretty much steady. Oklahoma, your placements in Oklahoma were down 18%. Goodness. Texas was down 6%. Well, where did these extra numbers come from? California is up 10%, and Washington, I'm not sure if this had to do with the Easter Day deal or what all was going on with that, but Washington placements in March were up 68%. And there's some feedlots out there in Washington, especially on the eastern side there, guys, but we've got to work through that. But I'm going to give you some feeder cattle cash sales that happened after that report, mostly on Saturday, and they were still just as strong as what we've been seeing, if not stronger. So I think people are seeing through that. What's coming up this week, we're just getting down to the wire here on the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act hearings. They're going to be going on Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday in the Senate, Wednesday in the House Ag Committees, and I tell you what, if you find out the link to watch that, you need to watch it, or at least pay attention to what the highlights are, or what people are saying. As far as the U.S. Cattlemen's Association that I work closely with, I recommended that we send my friend Ricky Ruffin up there to testify in Washington, D.C. He agreed to do it. He's a busy man. He's a full-time attorney, has been for 40 years, rural attorney in Bay Springs, Mississippi there, and runs cattle full-time also. Got a herd of cows, runs several hundred backgrounding cattle there on his grass there in Mississippi. But he's a great guy. He's been in this business for a long time. He's paid attention. He knows what's going on. He's been active with the U.S. Cattlemen's Association for many years. He's been seeing what's going on with the vertical integration and the drying up of our negotiated fed cattle market. It's been concerning to him. He lives down there in rural southeast part of the United States. He sees what it's doing to your small cow-calf producers, to your smaller backgrounders. He's very concerned about it. He's going to do a great job. I can't wait till I get to see that hearing that's going to happen on Tuesday. I got some other people there that are going to be pro, Price Discovery and Transparency Act. Got several people on there that are going to be against it. Now, most of them are funded and pushed by your big corporate feeders and their packer partners. So I'm anxious to see how this deal goes, but I sincerely hope that the opponents of the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act think that Ricky Ruffin is as stupid as they think all the rest of us are that are in favor of this bill, because they're going to find out different whenever they get to questioning him and he starts giving his answers there and testifying before that hearing. I'm looking forward to it. Now on Wednesday, we're going to have the House Representatives Ag Committee, and they've invited the big four packers to come in there. And I'm also interested in watching that testimony and see them answer for the gouging and the profiteering that they did during the pandemic. Why that they think that these cattle producers need to try to work hand in hand with them. Whenever they profit off of them, they don't share in any of the good times that they had. All of your major packers have had all-time record profits in the last 2 to 3 years. And the cattle people have not enjoyed any of that. That's why I say you cattle people are not in the beef business. If you were, you would have gotten to share in those healthy profits there that your packers got to enjoy. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And then likely, whenever we get through these hearings, then they're going to set a date for voting on this Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act. That is where your guys that are opposing it, which is the big money, big lobbyists, North American Meat Institute, your National Corporate Beef Association is totally against it because they've totally sold out to the big four packers and all their corporate feeding partners, and they're going to be coming after us, guys. And that's when we need you guys to come out. The number of people should be the one to make this pass or fail, not the amount of cattle or the size of their bank accounts for these boardrooms. So you guys have got to burn those phones up. You've got to call and talk to your local grassroots cattle association to get them to push things forward, and then they can tell those people how many voters or how many producers that they represent. We really got to get with this deal. They are going to come out hard after us between these hearings and the vote, and we've got to get this deal pushed over the line. Now I realize that I told you NCBA is totally against this thing. They've been pretty quiet about it. They've been pushing their message through their talking heads, through their major publications and websites that they advertise in. They've been pushing those writers to come out and be against this thing. They came to Feeder Flash and wanted to give us advertising money too. We didn't want that hush money. We're not going to say what they want us to say. We're just going to talk the truth on here, and mostly just the truth as I see it. But guys, we've got to fight and get this deal pushed forward. I realize that the RCAFers are saying that they don't want this bill either. They want something much more aggressive. We are fighting tooth and nail to preserve the minimum levels that we have right now, and they say that they're the lowest ever. They're not the lowest ever. The lowest percentages of trade that we ever had was back in 2015 after the big record prices of 2014. In fact, if we go back the last 2 years, which they're going to look at those to set the minimum, we did have some better percentage trade than what we had previous to that. During the pandemic, you remember that, they wouldn't take a lot of those corporate feedlots cattle because some of their sweetheart deals, some of their formula deals included profit sharing from the packers. We don't get to see those. But if we pass this Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act, we will make it law that we have a cattle contract library, and then we could start to see some of that. Now we're going to have to whittle on it and work on it to get it to show anything, because we can already tell from the listening session that we had late last week, they're not wanting to give us anything. They don't want to show us nothing. They don't want to show the whole card. They want to keep all that close to their chest, because it's obvious that they're making a lot more money on their cattle than your average independent feeder is. That's why we're losing so many independent feeders, and we're losing so many independent producers, whether they're backgrounding or cow-calf producers. And I tell you what, some of these big corporate feeding outfits are picking up the leases that these smaller backgrounders can't keep a hold of anymore, and they're backgrounding all the cattle, which all leads to fewer participants in this industry, and there's going to be fewer people that's going to bid on your calves and yearlings, guys. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I appreciate RCAF's passion for this industry, but they just want to keep fighting for something that they can't ever get. That's their MO. That's what they're the best at. And they bite off more than they can chew, and then they won't ever compromise, and that's why they're saying that they hate this compromise, because they can't imagine anybody compromising. They would rather come up with a class action suit that they have absolutely no chance in getting, and then getting the lawyers involved. That's not how we get things done as far as getting bills passed and changing the laws of the land. But we sure got to get this deal done, guys. Pay attention to this. I don't care if you've got 15 cows behind your house. It's going to make a difference in your bottom line. And I'll say it once again, I can't imagine any ag group not supporting this if they're being honest. I can't imagine any, a rodeo club, a 4-H or FFA membership, at the very, very least, a cattlemen's association. And who's going to fight us the worst? Texas Cattle Feeders Association, Kansas Livestock Association, going to fight this thing tooth and nail. Well, who butters their bread on both sides? Your corporate feeders. They want to keep growing and keep getting big. We're not trying to get them out of business. We're just trying to keep it viable for independents to get in there and play the game too, or be in this business, hold on to their land, keep their family farm, keep rural America going, keep these small schools going, your small hardware stores, your small feed stores. We've got to try to save this thing, guys. And to save it, what we got to do is we've got to establish a stop bleeding, a line in the sand. We're not going to lose any more negotiated trade. And then we've got to give USDA a couple of years, which is what they thought they needed, to get analysts in there to see what they think robust trade is. Well, they'll probably try to screw us on that deal too and infiltrate that situation. But whatever they say the adjustment is, it's going to be to the high side, because we've already established the minimum, guys. So we've got to start cranking on this thing, and it's a deal that's going to be continuously adjustable. We can keep trying to work on it. We can keep this industry viable for the many, many participants that love what they do and have decided that this is the way that they're going to raise their family, keep their land together, and improve their income. But talk about hard times. This wind, and I don't care where you're at. I mean, you've needed stampede strings. I don't care where you're at. This wind has been horrible. This weather patterns coming in this spring has just been very, very volatile. Severe winds here in the Texas Panhandle late in the week and over the weekend. They were gusting up to 60 miles an hour. Unbelievable. Everywhere I've been, everybody I talked to said they can't stand this wind anymore, and it stirs up these systems. We've got crazy weather going on. We've got horrible drought in so many places, and then we've got blizzards coming through, these late spring blizzards in Wyoming, in some dry places, and they're thankful for the moisture, but they'd rather not have the dead calves that come with the bad weather patterns that's come through there. But get up Rapid City, South Dakota, northwestern South Dakota area, eastern Montana, into North Dakota. They desperately need the moisture, but they just as soon it didn't come sideways with the frigid temperatures and all the dead calves as they're trying to calve right now. But fires everywhere, especially in the southwest. Arizona, New Mexico's got fires all over, even in the mountain areas. Texas has got fires. We've got ranches on fire in Texas Panhandle. They've got fires down in the hill country of Texas. It's dry down there. And then here late in the week, fires in Nebraska, guys. They're so dry there. There are fires in Nebraska, even up in the sand hills. Guys have sent me videos of terrible, terrible fires, around the Valentine, Nebraska area. Another fire that I heard of down in the Binkelman, Nebraska area, down in the Panhandle area there. But my gosh, it's been really tough. Let's talk about your board at the end of the week. April live cattle, Monday was down 20, Tuesday up 87, Wednesday up $1.72, Thursday up $1.02, Friday down $1.65, and that was before the report come out. Somebody might have peaked or whatever, but it was down hard before that report come out. April live cattle contracts ended the week at 142.45. That was up $1.78 for the week on your live cattle April contracts, but it's likely to be sucked down on Monday after the results of the cattle and feed report. June ended the week at 138.42. That was up $2 even. So nice gain there. We're sure going to need that. April feeder cattle, Monday was down 242, but then up the middle of the week. Tuesday was up 87, Wednesday up 85, Thursday up 95, Friday was down $0.50. Your April feeder cattle contracts ended the week at 157.95, down a quarter. But May feeder cattle, which is where everybody's looking now, but especially August, but May is the one that's got the most trade, 163.87. That was up $2.10. Your grains have been very volatile. We talked about that on and on, about mostly because of the war in the Ukraine. But corn ended the week regulars trading at $7.93 a bushel. That was up 2 3/4 cents, but it was very volatile within that. Beans, $17.16 bushel, up 33 3/4 cents. Kansas City hard red winter wheat down 11 1/4 cents at 11.42 3/4 cents a bushel. Your corn has been gaining ground, and of course beans were higher this past week, but corn has been gaining enough ground here the last 3 or 4 weeks, likely buying back some of the acres that it said that they gave up in that last prospective plantings report there. So we need to buy back some of that corn, but it costs so damn much to fertilize your ground to grow corn, and that's the main reason. But a 2-to-1 ratio there, just a little over that. That says that we should be growing more corn, but the fertilizer and the inputs are just so expensive. Fat cattle trade up through Thursday, 93,900 head. Can't tell me that we don't have bigger volume when the market's higher. And the market's higher when we have bigger volume. That's why we need to get more negotiated trade. 93.9 this past week compared to 86,900 the previous week, and just 56,500 same week a year ago up through Thursday. We'll get the results completely through the end of the week on our Monday session. But live sales of steers and heifers, 135 to 147. There was only 75 head at 135 in Texas. It was mostly 139 to 147. But your weighted average, 143 even. That was up almost $2 compared to the weighted average the previous week up through Thursday. Dress sales, 223 to 238. That was $2 to $7 higher on the trend there, guys. Your weighted average on dress steers, 231.90, up 603. Up 603 on the weighted average on dress steers, guys. Gaining big gains there, right there. And you look at some auctions, and I normally talk about some further west, but how about Lanesboro Sales Commission, Lanesboro, Minnesota? They had a sale on Wednesday, fat cattle sale. The colored cattle, or the beef cattle, they call them colored cattle because that's dairy country, but bring from 149.75 to 153 in the ring. I tell you what, they need the cattle, especially up there in that eastern Corn Belt area. Friday had a little bit of trade, just 100 head in Colorado, but it printed. So we've had our regional packers going into Colorado doing business, which has allowed that to print. 800 head for the week negotiated, big deal. 145 was the price they got on Friday. Iowa at 800 head confirmed on Friday, 26,200 for the week, 142 to 146 live. Nebraska about 1,000 head, 36,000 for the week. It's a good trade out of Nebraska. 230 to 233 was a dress trade there in Nebraska. Kansas and Texas didn't have any confirmed sales on Friday, but 21,700 for the week in Kansas, 11,000 for the week in Texas, which is the most we've had there for quite a while. Box beef cutout values were lower last week. Your weighted average on all of last week's box beef cutout sales that were reported, which it's a very thin amount that are reported. Only 544 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings are reported on the box beef cutout value report. Most of that is hidden without front sales, guys. Don't let them tie the fat cattle market to box beef cutouts. There's nothing the packers can manipulate more than that. But choice cuts, your weighted average on all of last week's sales, 269.58. That was down $2.90 from the previous week's weighted average. Select weighted average for last week, 257.13, down 267. Talking about what else is going on. Doing this report a little bit early because Sunday morning I'm flying out for Montgomery, Alabama to go to the Montgomery Stockyards board sale grass time video. First time that sale is going to be on the internet for internet bidding. It's going to be on dvauction.com, of course. It's going to be happening at noon Central, 1 o'clock Eastern on Monday. Montgomery Stockyards board sale. It's a big grass time video, and they've got nearly 100 loads of feeder cattle to sell. Talk about your feeder cattle market for last week. Real-time index on DV auction, ended the week at 157.50. That was $2.14 higher than the end of the previous week. We were gaining ground because there's just not that many cattle out there, guys. Like I've said, they're all in the feedlots. Let's talk about your cash feeder trend. Last week was steady to $4 higher in your bigger sales. Some of your late week sales, Fort Scott, and these sales happened after the cattle on feed report. And listen to how good they are. Fort Scott livestock there in Fort Scott, Kansas, 2,400 head of feeders, big sale for them. Look at these loads and bigger strings right here that I pulled from Cattle Market Central, weighing 850 to 950, 145.50 to 154.35. That's on the eastern side of Kansas, guys. How about Turlock Livestock Auction Yard? Turlock, California had a big special, 2,700 head. Look at this automated market report from Cattle Market Central. Look at your best tested weights. And they had some moisture early back in the winter, which they normally graze cattle in the winter. They had high hopes, and then it got dry and they had to pull a lot of those cattle off. They recently had a little more moisture way out west, but it's definitely not thick out there with grass. But 344 head of 5-weight steers in Turlock, average 554 at 175.97 weighted average on all your 5-weight steers. 662 head of 6-weight steers in Turlock, average 637 at 162.70. How about your heifers? 499 head of 5-weight heifers, average 563 at 162.57. 402 head of your 6-weight heifers, average 628 at 154.35. Winter livestock auction, winter South Dakota had 3,600 head there, and a really nice sale. Look at the automated market report from them. This is the only place you'll see this because they're not reported by a federal state market news agency. But 513 head of 7-weight steers, average 755. It's a weighted average price on all your 7 weights at 166.48. 497 head of 8-weight steers, averaged 822 at 162.93 on the weighted average. 398 head of 9-weight steers in winter South Dakota, averaged 935 with a weighted average price on the 9 weights at 151.62. Stick out deal I saw in winter was 78 head, 802-pound steers, bring 167.75. That's as high as we've seen for a long time. Burwell Livestock Market in Burwell, Nebraska sells 113 head, 793-pound steers at 168.50. Wow. But the best quote that I saw anywhere, your Row Grow top quote for the day, come out of Crawford Livestock Market in Crawford, Nebraska, 70 head, 720-pound steers at 183.75. That's your feeder flash for Monday.